My name is Melody O'Neill, and as Katie mentioned, I'm the Associate Admission Director at Landmark. Been at Landmark, this is my 26th year, so I've been at Landmark for a long time. I worked at our high school for a number of years as a teacher and academic advisor, and I've been in the admission office for quite some time now. So I'm going to take you guys through a presentation this morning, talking a bit more about who we are, what we do, our specific programs at the high school, both for academic year and summer program. And then we'll have the opportunity for you guys to ask some questions from a student panel. We'll also have some administrators joining us, and so we'll have that Q&A session going on after the presentation. So just give me a minute to get the presentation up and running. And again, feel free to, like Katie said, be folding your laundry or having a cup of coffee or whatever while we're presenting. So hold on 1 minute while I get this up.
If a question comes up while Melody's presenting, feel free to throw it in the chat. If you're worried you might forget it for the Q&A, and we'll just make sure that we touch upon it at that point. So,
okay, and Katie, are we all set? Everybody can see the welcome slide?
Yeah, so if for some reason it's not taking up the entirety of your screen, I'd recommend scrolling to the middle of the slide with the students on it, and you'll see a little push pin icon, and that'll make it full screen for you.
Okay. Okay, well, welcome again. We're going to talk about Landmark High School. So I'm excited to give you more information today about, again, who we are and what we do. First thing I'd like to run over with you guys is who our students are. The first thing I always like to bring up is that our students are bright. They're really smart kiddos who have incredible potential, and they have probably not been learning in the best way for them to really tap into their potential. So our students come to Landmark with all of this, again, hidden potential and this ability to make these great gains when taught in the right way. Our kids are well adjusted and very curious and eager to learn, despite maybe not being in the right or the best academic setting prior. And they're really resilient, capable kids. Again, when they're in a language-based setting, we see that they really take off. They're able to really start to internalize and apply skills and just make great progress. So again, despite the fact that students may have been in an educational setting that hasn't been ideal prior to getting to a language-based program, they're still really motivated and ready to go and wanting to take advantage of what Landmark has to offer. So that being said, I'm going to jump into talking about the diagnoses that we see and what a language-based learning disability includes. We at Landmark look at that term of a language-based learning disability as an umbrella term that can include a number of possible specific diagnoses or labels that are often incorporated into either a private neuropsych eval or public school psychoeducational testing. So about 70% of our students at Landmark High School are pretty classically dyslexic in terms of having a phonologically based reading disability. They struggle with word attack, decoding, encoding skills, reading fluency, that kind of thing. Sometimes we'll have students that come to Landmark that are actually pretty solid readers in terms of that basic decoding, encoding piece, but they may really struggle with organizing their thoughts for written expression, so they may have a disorder of written language. They may struggle with the language processing piece and really have a hard time getting out what they want to say. So we may see an expressive language issue where, again, that retrieval and oral formulation is a struggle. We do need for our students to really understand the language coming in. Our kids have good comprehension, but again, that retrieval and output may be a difficulty. The executive function piece is, I would say, kind of applicable to pretty much all of our students at Landmark in some way, shape, or form. So, and this is definitely a big buzz, term and label that's kind of out there for everybody, it seems like these days. So the executive function piece ties to things like having effective study skill strategies, knowing how to plan and organize, having effective time management, that ability to kind of shift sets from one thing to another. So most of our students struggle with some aspect of executive function. And then the working memory and or processing speed is also an area where we see a discrepancy for our students, and they often struggle with that ability to hold on to a lot of information at once, or how quickly they can output. And those are really, that's kind of it. I tell families that Landmark is a very specific program that supports a pretty narrow piece of the pie in terms of that language-based umbrella. We are very expert at supporting these bright kids that struggle with the reading, writing, listening, and speaking. When needs extend beyond that, we may not be the best fit. For example, if a student, has more primary social, emotional, behavioral needs, we're not therapeutic, so we would not be the best fit for a student who struggled more primarily in those areas. We certainly have kids that may have some secondary anxiety or lowered self-esteem, some mild depression due to their learning struggles, but it's really secondary to that. And once they're in the right educational setting, that piece really subsides for them. We're also not equipped to support students who may have more difficulties on the spectrum in terms of social pragmatic needs. We're a pretty socially dynamic campus, and our kids need to be able to navigate that successfully. In terms of our students' cognitive profile, we do ask for something that's called the Whisk Testing. Hopefully most of you have heard of that, again, through either private neuropsych testing or school psychoed testing. And the Whisk is the Wessler Intelligence Scale for children. If a student is 16 or older, they may have had the WACE, which is the adult version of the Whisk. And that cognitive measure looks at some specific areas. For our students at Landmark, the strengths for our kids really lie in the realm of that comprehension of information coming in, and especially that fluid reasoning and visual spatial integration. When we think about reasoning and integration, we're thinking about the ability when language is removed to make meaning, to see the big picture, to integrate and problem solve. We're very visually based in the way we teach at Landmark, and we need for that fluid reasoning and visual spatial integration to be a main area of strength for our kids in order for them to access the curriculum and make effective progress. So that's really important. That Whisk testing needs to be within 3 years of date of application. If it is outdated, we ask for that to be updated for us. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, the areas of difficulty or where the discrepancy is usually seen is with that working memory and or processing speed on the Whisk. It oftentimes is not equal to those other areas of comprehension and reasoning. And I just want to mention quickly before I move on to our next slide to kind of get into the specific programs at the high school, I do want to mention that along with the testing, when you apply to Landmark, there are a number of other pieces of information that we require, such as teacher references and school reports. And if a student sees like a school counselor or therapist, there's a form for that person to complete, a copy of the IEP or 504 if there is one. So there's a whole checklist that is included when you go to our website and you download the application. There is a fillable app available for you to download and work on. And there's a whole checklist there of everything we need to receive. We do not have an application deadline. We work on a rolling basis, both for our academic year and summer program. So please know that you can start working on things, getting us information piecemeal. Our office will keep in touch with you through email about what we have and what we still need. And once it is complete, we will let you know that we now have everything. And that's when we start our review process. So we won't start reviewing an application until we have all of the pieces in the application is considered complete. And that review process typically takes about a month. So I just wanted to mention that. Okay, so let's start to talk about our high school specifically and what's unique about Landmark. How are we different from other programs that are out there, and what makes for a good, quality language-based program? One of the most important pieces of who we are and what we do, and kind of the hallmark of Landmark School, is this daily one-to-one tutorial that we offer. Every student, minus a very small group, which I'll talk about later, anybody who comes to us with any gaps in language or literacy skills will be placed in a daily tutorial. It's one of their 50-minute classes that they would have every day. So the Landmark students have a set schedule that stays consistent from 7:50 in the morning until 3:15 in the afternoon. There are 50-minute classes like math and science and social studies, but one of those classes every day is this one-to-one tutorial. It's an individualized curriculum designed from a diagnostic of goals. So it's really, there are no two tutorials that look exactly the same. It's really customized. And we're looking at the level of, phonemic awareness for decoding, encoding skills. We're looking at where contextual reading fluency is and written output. We're looking at some of the executive function and oral expression skills. And any and all of those things can be incorporated into the tutorial depending upon, again, what that student needs. We have, of the 300 students at our high school, typically about 80 or so of them doing a specific early literacy tutorial. This tutorial focuses a lot on utilizing the LIPS program. If folks have heard of things like Wilson or OG or Gillingham, the Linda Mubel phonemic sequencing program is another phonetic-based approach towards teaching reading. It goes back to that basic sound symbol correspondence. It's probably the most multisensory of all the programs. The students are using a lot of kinesthetic materials and oral motor feedback. So again, we're bringing in the LIPS. Again, this is really for the kids who have real significant gaps still in their basic word attack and phonemic awareness ability. And the other thing to know, though, is that we're not just utilizing one program. We really are prescriptive and diagnostic in nature. We don't feel that one program works best for everybody, so we want to have plenty of tools in the toolbox. We will do some Seeing Stars, some V&V, some Read Naturally, some Great Leaps, some elements of Wilson. We're going to bring in what we need to customize that tutorial. But this is very unique to Landmark High School that we have this one-to-one every day for our students. In terms of our classroom, what's unique is that our average size is 6 to 8, sometimes as small as 3 or 4 students, depending upon the class. We are not allowed to go beyond 8. We are an approved program in the state of Massachusetts. About half of our students are funded to Landmark. So we have a cap with our class size. The other important thing to know is that we're placing students in classes based on their ability level. So we're looking at things like the working memory and the processing speed and the expressive language and the level of literacy skills and written output when we group students. And so oftentimes in the admission office, we'll get questions about, oh, is your 10th grade sophomore class full, or is your junior class full? And that's not how we admit students to our program. We admit students until we're full as a school, as a campus, until all of our tutorial teaching periods are full. So not to say that we're taking, 18-year-old seniors and putting them with 14-year-old freshmen, but typically grade up, grade down. We will look at those different skill sets and make sure that when a student is in a math class or a history class or an LA class, that they're really grouped with, 5 or 6 other kids that are moving at the same pace as them, so that the teacher can really gauge the pace of the class, the amount of independent homework that they can assign at night, and so forth. So that's pretty unique to Landmark with how we do our groupings. We do follow the Mass Curriculum Frameworks. As I just mentioned, we're an approved program, so students are going through the typical content classes they would have at any public high school. They're taking, biology and chemistry and U.S. and world history and algebra and geometry. It's just that the delivery of instruction is quite different, obviously, with Landmark being a language-based program, than how they would, how that content would be delivered in a large public school classroom. And our teachers that are teaching our kiddos at Landmark they either already have a master's in mild to moderate special education, or they're currently on a waiver with the DESE working towards that master's. They're enrolled in a graduate program working towards that, and everybody is being supervised and so forth. So the teachers really have a ton of training and coursework that they're going through, and have really become expert and specialized in this, in working with this specific profile of student. So with our approach, I've mentioned, we're language-based, and what that means is that it's a skill-based program that provides direct, explicit instruction, and we know that this works. So, it's not that the students aren't learning content, but they're learning content through study skills. It's a lot of how are you effectively previewing relevant vocabulary and taking good 2-column notes, and the teacher is presenting the new content information in the classroom. And then the students are practicing skills. So it's less of, go read these 15 pages of your text and learn this information independently. So it's very skill-based, hands-on, direct instruction, and it's consistent across curriculum. I want to use that phrase, consistent across curriculum, so that when students are using and learning certain skills, it's not one teacher doing it one way and another teacher doing it a different way. The goal is for these skills to become internalized for the kids so that they can implement these skills independently. And in order to do that, there has to be consistency across curriculum. We do have 3 distinct programs at our high school campus. When you folks go to apply to Landmark School, you will just apply to Landmark High School as a whole. But as we go through our review process, which is very comprehensive, and we're looking at independent testing, and we're looking at school reports and feedback, and then we do our screening process, which would happen at the end of reviewing an application. Once we have a completed application, if we think we're likely to be a good fit, we would set up a screening at that point with the student. And that screening gives us some really valuable information about program placement at the high school. We understand that all of our kids are really bright, but we also acknowledge that they come to us with different skill sets in place or not in place. So that will, again, determine what program the student is placed into. The largest majority of our students come to us starting out in our Founders Program. So the Founders Program is, again, it's our traditional program where a student is taking math, science, social studies, English language arts to focus on grammar and written composition. They have their one-to-one tutorial every day, which could be either an early literacy tutorial, again, where we have identified that they need to use a lot of the LIPS program to build word attack, or a more traditional tutorial where they're working on, some higher level contextual reading fluency and writing and study skills. But they get that tutorial. And then they have a 6th academic class in the day for the students in our Founders Program. That 6th academic class, we decide, again, looking at the testing, we figure out, does a student need an additional small group reading fluency class? Do they not need that? And then maybe they'll go into a study skills class, or maybe they need a literature class to build vocabulary and work on some reading comprehension skills. So we will determine that 6th academic based on, the testing, the screening that we do, and figuring out the profile of the student and what their needs are. And there is, for the students who are tuning into this presentation, please know that you do get an elective in the day. There is the chance to do something fun, and I promise I will get to all the fun stuff soon after I talk about all of the academics, so that we have a very robust a list of options of elective choices and afternoon activities, and our extracurriculars are huge at Landmark. So So that's the Founders Program. For the students in the Expressive Language Program, which is probably about 90 or so kids, these are students that have been identified as having noted difficulties with retrieval, output of language, oral formulation of language. So really the only difference in their day, because they're still getting the math, science, social studies, English language arts, and the one-to-one tutorial. The only main difference in their day is that that 6th academic class for these kiddos is the oral expression class. And this class focuses on that retrieval and output of language. So that, again, that's the main difference. And, you know, honestly, the students that are in our Founders Program versus our Expressive Language Program, they don't even necessarily know they're in one program or the other. It's just that extra language support in the day that they're receiving. And there is, you know, the capability of moving with, you know, there's that what's the word I'm looking for? That ability to move and transition between programs as students make progress. So certainly we may have students starting off in expressive language. They need the oral expression class. Then after a year or two, they may not. They may transition into the Founders Program. Same kind of thing with our prep program, which is the third option. We may have students that start off in our Founders Program and they build those literacy skills in the tutorial. And, you know, after a couple of years, they're now reading at grade level. They no longer need the one-to-one tutorial for the literacy remediation. They may be ready to transition into our prep program. So we typically have between 40 and 50 full-time students in our prep. The prep program is mirrored a bit more after a traditional private prep school, but still with all of the great landmark multisensory language-based teaching methodology in place. The focus in the prep is to build the executive function study skills, the higher level essay writing skills, and the higher level, more inferential reading comprehension strategies. These are the only students at Landmark who are not receiving the daily one-to-one literacy tutorial because they do not require that. Again, these students are at a point where they are reading at grade level for their basic decoding and reading fluency and encoding skills. It may be that some of the students in our prep are not classically dyslexic, but struggle more with the disorder of written expression and the executive function processing issues. Or it may be that their dyslexia has been, quote unquote, remediated, again, to a point where they're demonstrating pretty solid reading ability and they're ready to move on. So these students have their math and science and social studies classes. They have a grammar and composition as their LA class. And then they take a literature class and a study skills class. We talk about the students in the prep being able to handle a bit more in terms of pace, volume, and complexity. There is more in terms of independent reading and writing demand because we know that they are able to handle that. And sometimes we have, you know, 30 or so students each year that are doing some kind of combination of programming. They may be taking a prep study skills or literature class or social studies class, but they may still need to be in our Founders Program for the tutorial and the language arts for writing. So we're really able to customize, move students along in the areas where they excel, but meet them at the level they need to be met at for the remediation to happen where that still needs to happen. And I do want to quickly mention that the prep program is the only part of Landmark High School that's not approved by the state. So if you are seeking funding, we cannot have a funded student in our prep program. I have talked about the study skills a bit already, as you know, mentioning that it's embedded in everything that we do. But just to review, it truly is an integral part of our curriculum. So whether a student has a specific study skills class in their schedule that year or not, they are still getting study skills support in everything that they do. Again, that process of learning how to take good 2-column notes, how to paraphrase information, the test taking strategies, and really solidifying that 5-step writing process of how to go from a brainstorm to an outline to a rough draft to an edit to a final draft. And again, consistency with use of the templates and the graphic organizers, whether they have to do a paper for LA or history, we want the consistency in the template usage. Another thing that's unique about Landmark is the role of the academic advisor. So every student at Landmark has somebody who's overseeing their academic program, their schedule. And this person works really closely with the tutorial teacher who is tutoring the student daily. They kind of supervise that tutorial. They work with the teacher to develop the diagnostic of goals that the teacher will work off of for the year to instruct the student. They monitor closely with progress that's being made and adjusting goals as needed. And they also write the IEP for any funded student in their caseload. We do have about 50% of our students at Landmark funded, either partially or fully by local districts, and about half of our students privately placed. So they would write the IEP for any student in their caseload that's funded. Their caseload is typically about 18, 19 students. It's also the role of the academic advisor to be the main contact person for the family. So updates on how the student is doing. They keep in touch with you pretty regularly through email or phone, however you prefer the updates to be. And for the student, anything that comes up at all, if they're a month into school and they feel like they're in a class that's not the right pace or level for them, they can go talk to their advisor. If they, are a resident on campus and they, left their homework binder in their dorm and the dorm's locked and they need to get in there, they can go find their advisor. So, they're there to help problem solve and to kind of make sure the student's on track with their work. And they will certainly reach out to families if there are any questions or concerns that pop up along the way. And the nice thing about the role of the academic advisor, that person stays with the student during their years at Landmark. It's not a new person every year. So they develop a very nice relationship with the student in their caseload, and they get to know them really well. And it becomes a nice connection for the student to have somebody that they feel really comfortable to go to when anything comes up. We also have a fantastic guidance and transition process at Landmark High School. We start the transition planning as early as 9th grade with our students, doing interest inventories and figuring out, where a student's strengths really lie and what their passions lie and what they might want to pursue. Starting halfway through junior year, our students have weekly one-to-one meetings with their designated assigned guidance counselor. It's real personalized support. They're taking the kids through the process of helping them to register for ACTs, SATs, helping them get the applications for schools they're interested in, getting teacher recommendations, writing essays, all of those things. So they're really, it's a very hands-on process. All of our students who apply to college, which is pretty much all of them, get accepted. Typically between 94 and 96% decide to attend. We occasionally will have a student that might do a gap year or go into a specific trade or go into the military, but the majority of our students are going to colleges and universities. We are preparing them for that. We are a high school, college preparatory high school, so we're getting them ready. So that's a great part of our high school programming is that guidance and transition process. I do want to quickly mention homework at the high school. Students do get homework every night. It is a direct practice and review of the skills and content that have already been introduced in the classroom. Our goal is to really make it so that you can feel like you can sit down, do the homework independently. It's very manageable. It's nothing to stress about. You will never have a worksheet on something that you've never seen before. It's always going to be reviewing what's already been addressed in class and typically what's been addressed in class that day. So it's very fresh in your mind and you're working on reviewing those concepts and skills. Typically for our underclassmen, it's about an hour and a half a night, about 20 minutes per subject. As students become upperclassmen, junior, senior year, the homework load will increase a little bit because we're getting you ready for what you're going to experience at the post-secondary level. It does count as a big chunk of your grade. So the students listening in, it's really important to get homework done. It's a third of your grade. And if students do not complete an assignment, they will go to a structured homework makeup after school for 45 minutes to get caught up, and there are folks there that are helping the students to support them through that homework makeup time. Okay, so I want to jump into now talking about after school at Landmark, life at Landmark, and I promise I'm getting to all the fun stuff soon. So after school, we typically have about 60% or so of our 300 kids on campus commuting as day students, and about 40% living on campus as boarding students, as residents. Of course, you know, right now our boarding program is on pause because of the pandemic. We are working right now as a day program only, and having students commute, or if they're from too far away, they're joining us remotely. And, you know, we're obviously paying close attention to how things progress with COVID-19, and we'll resume our residential program as soon as it's safe to do so. So for day students who commute, we encourage them, and over 95% of them stay after school for activities, whether it's sports, whether it's, you know, being involved with visual or performing arts, our wood shop, our auto shop. Most of our day students are staying on campus after school. Oftentimes they're staying through supper and leaving later on in the evening. For the kids who live at Landmark, we work on a level system. And the goal of the level system, it's a residential curriculum to really support the executive function piece around time management and organization. We're trying to really build the self-advocacy piece for our kids, and healthy decision making. So we have these 6 levels where a new student, whether they come in as a freshman or a junior, they will start off at level 1. There's more structure, and there are more rules, I would say, to level 1 in terms of, you know, they have to wake up at a certain time. They get checked out. They have a structured study hall at their desk where they're working from 8 to 9:30. They have a certain, 10 o'clock lights out for bedtime. As they move up the levels, which is really every few weeks, as students are meeting the day-to-day expectations around, being on time in the morning, getting out of the dorm, lights out on time at night, being productive during study hall. As they do those basic day-to-day expectations, they get to move up the levels. So every few weeks, they can move up. And once a student gets to level 5, they can have a fridge and TV in their room. They can have food delivered. They get a later bedtime. They can shut their door during study hall and be on their bed if they want. They develop, they gain, a lot of these privileges as they show they can handle the independence around those privileges. Level 6 is kind of ultimate freedom. Students have to do a certain amount of community service hours. Upperclassmen can have their car on campus and sign themselves out at the student life office if they want to go, into town to get a cup of coffee. They do their homework when they want. They have a key to their dorm and their room to get in when they want. So level 6 is kind of the ultimate freedom, but a student really has to earn that. They have to be at Landmark for a decent period of time and show that they're a very mature and responsible member of the community. So that's how our residential curriculum works. It's a very structured schedule from the time the kids wake up until the time they go to bed at night. And that structure is in place starting Sunday night because the students will have homework over the weekend. And it goes through Thursday. And then starting Friday is when we have weekend trips and activities. We do everything. We're in a fantastic location, being on the North Shore and just 30 minutes from Boston, where we can go into the city and we can be on the ocean when the weather's nice. Then we can, in the winter months on Saturdays, go to local mountains for skiing and snowboarding and other, movie trips. And again, this is all once the world resumes some sense of normalcy again, and we can, safely and healthily do these things. And so this is all, like I said, on pause for right now, but this is typically how our residential curriculum works. So in terms of pursuing the passions, I'm finally at the fun stuff. A lot of our daily electives that are available during the school day are also after-school activity options for our students. So for example, we have an incredible visual arts department with all kinds of 2D, 3D media art, things like drawing and painting and printmaking and ceramics and photography. We have an amazing performing arts department with chorus and dance and drama and theater tech, where kids are doing lighting and sound and building sets. We have kids taking music lessons. So again, a lot of these things, a student can pick something as an elective during the day. They could also be involved with these activities after school if they're not doing a sport after school. If they decide to do a sport after school, we have a wonderful athletic program. We compete in a league with a dozen other private schools in the area. We have in the fall cross country and soccer and golf and girls volleyball. In the winter, we offer basketball and wrestling, swim team, and we have indoor track. And I mentioned just the Saturday ski and snowboard club where we'll go to local mountains. In the spring, we have tennis and lacrosse. We have outdoor track. We have sailing. And then we have baseball for the boys and softball for the girls. So there are a lot of athletic options going on after school for the kids to take part in. And we also have a working auto shop on campus. We have a woodworking building where the kids do wood shop and boat building. We have a great technology department and program with all kinds of STEAMworks things going on, robotics and all kinds of programming and technology courses. So again, electives during the day or an option to be in the auto shop or the wood shop after school as an afternoon activity as well. And the community service program at Landmark is incredible. The students probably log over 5,000 hours of community service every year. They have the opportunity to be involved in all different areas of community service, whether it's helping out, raking elderly's lawns, to working at food pantries, to doing Adopt a Highway stuff. We have different service trips for our spring breaks that we do. So there's a lot going on with community service. I should also mention that we have things like student government and student advocates and all kinds of activities regarding that as well. So that's all about life at Landmark and all the extracurriculars we have to offer. We're really a full-fledged high school, and there's probably more than the typical public high school would have in terms of all of our offerings and ways for students to really pursue their passions at Landmark. So the last piece of the presentation I wanted to get to is summer at Landmark. We unfortunately had to cancel, this past summer, the summer program and our traditional summer program. And then this summer coming up, we are right now, planning on an academic day program. We're hopeful to maybe add some afternoon activities. But the way the summer usually works is it's 4 weeks during the month of July. For students entering grades 8 through 12, they attend our high school. So that's a little different from the school year where we're grades 9 through 12. Over the summer, the students have 4 classes that are an hour each. Everybody has a one-to-one tutorial. They have a language arts class, they have a math class, and then they will have either an extra reading fluency class or a study skills class that we will determine based on the student's needs. And then there's lunch, and then after lunch is a structured study hall. There is some homework over the summer. It's not nearly as intensive as the school year, but we want to have students practicing and reviewing skills and concepts for homework each day based on what the classes are teaching them. So that's the structure of the summer. And then we offer activities in the past, such as sea kayaking. We've had a marine science program. We've had students doing visual arts, photography. There's been a fitness option where students can have a gym membership and work with, you know, a trainer, doing some CrossFit, so, and spinning, things like that. So we'll have to see how the activities play out for this coming summer, but, you know, they have, in the past, when students have been residents for the summer program, we've had community nights and we do weekend trips. And so the summer program is a great way to transition into Landmark as a new student. It's a great way to get going with the skills and the remediation that needs to happen. Usually about a quarter of the students that attend for summer program are going to be new students in the fall. There are usually about 50 students that attend our summer, so it's smaller than the school year, obviously. But again, it's a great way for them to make some friends from friendships ahead of time. They get to know their academic advisor ahead of time. And again, they just get comfortable with the campus, and it's a great way to transition in. So if you're considering the idea of summer program, maybe in addition to the school year, you would check off both on the application. Or if you're just applying for summer only, again, there's a checkbox for you to indicate that it's summer only. And I think I was able to get through all the slides. Thank you so much for listening to all that information. I'm sure there are things I forgot to mention, but we're going to have the opportunity for you guys to be asking questions of our students and our administrators. So I'm going to hand it over to Katie now. Let me just get out of the presenting mode here.
Thanks, Mel. All right, everyone. That was a lot to process, but hopefully it was good information. And we're excited to help you kind of make sense of all of that and answer any questions. So as a reminder to use that chat feature, if you go to the right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see the box with the 3 horizontal lines, and that's where you can add your questions. Here they come. Good. So again, we'll have some administrators introduce themselves, our faculty at the high school, and at 9:42, that's when our students will join. That's the start of their milk break. So again, they have 2 classes, and then they get a break for a snack. So we've got some nice students who are giving up their free time to talk about their Landmark High School experience. So feel free to populate questions at this point that are either geared towards our faculty and staff, or that you want to remember to ask the students. So without further ado, I'll introduce some of our panelists. I see Bob Bruto is on the call. Our headmaster. Bob, can you say hello?
Thank you, Katie, and welcome everyone. I don't know where you're all located, but I have to say it's a gorgeous day here in New England. If we could just keep this all winter, we'd be all set. And I'd also like to say that we're really excited because we're completing week 9 on campus with our students, and they have been amazing. It's a testimony to the team that put our programs together, but our families and our kids as well. They've been just incredible on campus this year. So we're finishing week 9, and we're in year 50 of Landmark, and we will talk about the program. But since day 1, Landmark has been a school for kids with language-based learning disabilities with an individualized program, so that no 2 students in our entire school have the same program. It's based on what they need, what each person needs. So you'll hear more about that as we talk along. And I just want to encourage you to be in touch with any one of us at any time with further questions. We're always available. Thank you, Katie.
Thanks for being here, Bob. I'd also like to introduce Bill Barrett, the head of our high school campus.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. As Katie mentioned, I'm the head of the high school campus. This is my 6th year in this position and my 25th year at Landmark School. My wife, Christine, is also a department head at Landmark High School, and it is her 25th year. And that's us on the professional side. On the family side, I have 3 sons, one of whom went to Landmark to the elementary middle school program for 2 years. So I thank you for being here. He's now a freshman in college and doing well. But I can remember back when he was in 5th grade and trying to make this decision and recognizing that it's a big one, and that there are a lot of factors that go into it. And one of the factors is what you're doing today in terms of getting information and asking questions. So thank you for taking the time to be here. It's great to have you here.
Thanks, Phil. Ariel Martin Cohn, say hello.
Academic Dean. So I help the academic dean with scheduling all of the classes and all of the one-on-one tutorials. And then I oversee and supervise all of the academic advisors who will be your point person with daily questions, progress questions, need for additional support or guidance, and the department heads who oversee the classrooms and the curriculum that teachers are delivering in that very individualized manner that Bob mentioned. I also do MCAS testing, and I'm the director of the summer program. So if you have questions about either of those things, I'm happy to answer them as well.
Thank you, Ariel. Rob Genatelli.
Good morning, everyone. Again, my name is Rob Genatelli. I'm the Dean of Students here at the high school. I'm in my 25th year, and I work with 2 other deans, and we coordinate and implement the overall student life program and the residential curriculum in particular. So happy to answer any of those questions.
Rob, there was already a question. It was about the level system. So I'll also ask the students to speak to this, but while we were waiting for them to join the call, would you mind expanding on how students gain privileges and kind of the thought behind our level system?
Absolutely. So the level system was designed from feedback from alum that came back to us and saying, here are the areas that we didn't feel we were prepared for when we left Landmark School and went into the world of college. And so the level system was designed and implemented to develop and create an awareness around 3 basic hard skills: the development of organizational skills, the development of time management skills, and the development of effective self-advocacy skills, with the self-advocacy skills being the most important out of the 3, because the academic program also works on time management and organizational skills, but the residential curriculum really infuses the concept of effective self-advocacy. So the level system is designed and built around those skills. So we create opportunities to be on time. You have to check in on time. You have to create a neat and organized living space. As you progress up the level systems, to move certain levels, you have to demonstrate a mastery of some of those skills. And in fact, when you move from level 4 to 5, that's probably the most challenging jump in the level system, because that really, you have to be demonstrating your ability to organize, manage time, and effectively advocate by creating a campus event that requires you to pull all 3 of those components in to demonstrate a mastery of skill. So the level system is designed around an individual skill base. It is created on an individual basis per child to make sure that we're meeting and addressing his or her needs as they present in a supportive environment that challenges the development of organization, time management, and self-advocacy. There you go.
Thank you, Rob. And the question that just came in is, what happens when they don't?
The level system is fluid. You can move up the level system and you can move back down the level system. So the levels are adjusted according to your ability. So if I'm a sitting level 5 student and I'm really struggling getting out of the house on time, or not checking in on time, or not, homework isn't being completed at the level of expectation, then I'm going to receive a written warning from my residential advisor or house parent that says, here's the area, here's the self-corrective action that needs to be taken. And if they don't create that course adjustment, then they'll drop a level. So they'll move back down to the lowest level that supports their current level of functioning. And then just jump back in and keep right on going and continue to progress up the level system. So it is a fluid motion. And then there are times that there are students that are struggling in a particular area. And so the house parent will get creative, and you might find a student be on like level 4.3 or 4.5, where we're micro-unting it down to that level of specificity to address a certain area that needs to be addressed, but they're meeting overall areas. So we get kind of creative in it. Again, the push and the design is to assist them in developing the necessary skills to be successful when they move out of this level of structured environment into ideally a college environment where they're really independent of you as parents and us as adults that care for them.
Thank you. And just to make everyone aware, Libby Parker is our Director of Admissions, and that's who's answering your questions as they're coming in. So there's Libby behind the scenes. Thank you, Libby. I'm trying to see what else we missed. Timing of the school day, that's an easy one. Bill, do you want to explain the start and end times?
Absolutely. So we start our school day at 7:50, and that would be homeroom, followed by period 1, and then we end the day promptly at 3:13. And at present, we aren't running after-school sports or activities, so the school day really does end at 3:13. The hope would be next year would be a normal year, and then at 3:13, our day becomes almost even busier with kids moving to practice and performing arts and moving through the dorms and things like that. But in our current model, the day ends at 3:13. Next year, again, the academic day would end at 3:13, but then we have sports activities, and things like that.
And Bill, there was a question, are our day students in school full time this year? Can you explain kind of where the majority of campus, how they're flowing? Absolutely. And again, as we all know, this is a unique year, but we are operating a full day program at this point. So that 7:50 to 3:13 is happening today and for the foreseeable future. We do have students because we have closed the dorms for the time being. So some of those students are accessing our program fully remotely. And then some of those students live close enough where they're able to be full-time day students. And then we also have students that have a significant drive. Maybe they're coming from the South Shore of Massachusetts, Southern New Hampshire, Western Massachusetts. And so some of those students, given the nature of the drive, may be on campus 3 days a week or 4 days a week, but then they're taking a break of a day or two and staying home and accessing their classes. And to be honest with you, and this is a two-way street, it's amazing what our families are doing to get their children to access our program. And it's amazing what our faculty are doing to accommodate that in a sense. So in any given class, and Rob or Ariel or I could walk around and see, an in-person class going on, but there'll be one or two students perhaps on a Google Meet participating in that class remotely. So it's our own specialized or individualized hybrid model this year in a sense. And I know we have about 40 students fully remote, and I think another 45 or so hybrid. But the majority of our students are here as full-time day students. And I think there was an earlier question about how good is your internet, which is a tricky one to answer, I think. I would have to say it's good because it has to be. While we want to be an in-person school, I would say we couldn't be an in-person school. There's an irony here without a good internet system because of what I described in terms of how the classes are running and all of our teachers to sort of level the playing field for our students, but also put these systems in front of them are operating their classes through Google Classroom and Canvas, for a variety of reasons. And our tutorial is actually currently running fully remote. So even if a student is on campus and a teacher is on campus, they can't be in that close proximity that we would usually have. So those tutorials are happening, via the internet and actually working well. Tutorial is one of those areas where we continue to make gains. Students continue to have a good experience, but it's actually happening. The student and the teacher are on different parts of the campus. So we, sometimes there might be a stoppage, but it rarely happens. We have technology coordinators on campus, and if they were on this call, they could dazzle you with all the tech speak, which I cannot do. But anecdotally, in terms of what we see on campus and how it's working, we're very pleased. Thank you, Bill. All right. What programs are used for tutorials? Ariel, can you address this question?
Yeah, and I saw another one about how many days a week. I think Libby answered it, but just to clarify. So the vast majority of students in our program have a 50-minute one-on-one tutorial every day. Students in the prep program do not have that one-on-one tutorial, so that's the only exception. We are not a Wilson school. We're not a strictly LIPS school. We have tutors that use the Linda Mood Bell system and parts of that program in the early literacy tutorials. And we have some tutors who are familiar with the Wilson program and will incorporate elements of that. We don't usually use Orton Gillingham, but we certainly have elements of that program. So really what your student's gonna get is a highly individualized patchwork of different programs and resources that we've found to be the most responsive to our students. There are certainly strengths in each of those programs, but we found that our students respond to a more flexible approach that's a little bit more dynamic and reflective of their interests and their particular areas of skill deficit and strengths. So if your student's in an early literacy tutorial, they're going to work through the Linda Mood Bell program over the first couple of months, and then they're going to move into different curriculum and programs. If your student's in a founders tutorial, they're going to start the year with a variety of different curriculum and programs to address fluency, comprehension, vocabulary, spelling, written expression, and then study skills and executive function. So it's a really crucial cornerstone of our program, and I think is the thing that really sets us apart in terms of the amount of time your student spends in that one-on-one environment.
Thank you, Ariel. So our students should be with us and momentarily. So I wanted to prompt you to start brainstorming questions that you'd like to hear from the student perspective. We'll certainly kind of circle back to some of these themes in terms of their thoughts on tutorial, their thoughts on the level system, things like that. The other thing I'll mention is I know there are a number of families on the call whose students are at our elementary middle school. So if you hear that EMS term, I wanted to make sure that I had some students who are from the elementary middle school campus. And I also wanted to recognize a number of families who are students at Carroll School. So if you're not familiar, if you're family from New York, Carroll School is another school in Massachusetts that has a similar profile, and a lot of students successfully transition from Carroll to Landmark School. So hopefully we get some representatives from who've followed that trajectory. So think about what we'll ask the students. Again, their milk break started just now. Oh, I do see our first student. Mia is on. Hello. Hi, Mia. Thank you for
Hi, how are you?
Mia, could you say where you're from, how long you've been at Landmark, your year, just kind of a general introduction would be really helpful.
Sure. Hi, I'm Mia. This is my third year at Landmark, and I'm from Brookline, Massachusetts, and I'm currently full remote as of now. So,
thanks for joining us. Mia, what are some of the things that you've been involved in on campus?
Yeah, so I'm part of Student Advocates, which is a selected class for seniors where you go to different colleges and present about dyslexia, and you basically talk to college students that are majoring in education, and you just talk about what life is like with dyslexia, how to help your students when you become a teacher. I'm also part of the Stock Club at Landmark. I do community service, and I'm taking an independent sign language class at Landmark this year. So
it's so nice to see you, Mia. We've missed you.
Thank you.
And Mia, you correct me if I'm wrong. You transitioned from Carroll School, correct?
Yes. So I went to Carroll from 5th grade up to 9th grade, and then I transitioned during my sophomore year here.
Perfect. Glad you joined us. Thank you. All right. So we're waiting for Ethan, I believe. Okay. So again, questions, please keep them coming for the students as they start to join in. Let's see, who else? Someone just joined. Oh, Eric, could you say hello and then give an introduction?
Hello, I'm Eric. I'm from Vermont. I play soccer, basketball, and baseball. I am a junior. My first year here was last year as a sophomore. I was at boarding student last year, but right now I'm currently remote.
Thanks for joining us, Eric. That was a really good introduction. All right, questions for the students. And there are some students on the call, so it's always great to hear students asking of peers their honest response to Landmark. All right, a good question. So Mia, this one's for you. What would you say the difference is between Carroll and Landmark?
Okay, so there's many similarities, which, Landmark has a tutorial program just like Carroll does, but I feel like, and this is not like, this is just an honest opinion, I feel like Landmark honestly better supports you. And I feel like the academic programs at Carroll, when I was there, may be different now, but the math program wasn't as strong the science program wasn't as strong. It's a great school, don't get me wrong. I just feel like at Landmark, they know how to teach you when it comes to math, because math is like one of my weakest subjects, and I'm not taking calculus, which I never thought I'd ever take. And I just feel like they better support you at Landmark. The teachers understand you more. They go at a pace that you need to go, which is just like Carroll. I mean, they're both very similar. I just think that the curriculum here is much more structured, and the community here is so much more welcoming. The campus is bigger here, so you get to have lots of more outdoor time when you transition from each class to class, which is nice. Let me think of other differences. The class sizes are smaller, I think, here than Carroll. I mean, there's not many differences. I just feel like the curriculum here is much more structured than Carroll is. That's my personal opinion, and I feel like I got a lot more tools and strategies from Landmark than my time at Carroll. So, yeah. I hope that answered the question.
No, that's great. Thank you. Okay. Oh, this is a good one. So asking about bullying at Landmark. And so I guess maybe we'll start with Ariel Martin-Cohn on this one, and then I'd love to get students' perspective, not necessarily about bullying, but maybe just thinking about how you would describe the community. But Ariel, I'll let you start that.
So I'll answer briefly, and then I think I'll ask Rob to chime in, because Rob and the Dean of Students office do the bulk of the work in helping to develop and maintain healthy student relationships. But from the academic side, we do a lot to set a tone of inclusivity and celebrating diversity. We have a really strong Gender and Sexualities Alliance group. We have an intercultural group that a faculty member leads to help support students who might be from different cultures, either geographically, religiously, ethnically, racially. And then we have a faculty group called Diversity and Inclusion Advocates that's working on anti-racist topics, improving our curriculum, and thinking about how to continue to make us a safer, more welcoming community. And then again, I think Rob and his colleagues, Andrea Mead and Jeff Fossey, really do the bulk of the work in supporting students if they're struggling with a particular interaction, whether it's in person or online. And they're incredibly skilled at that.
Are you needing me to jump in? I feel like Ariel just nicely populated it. Thank you so much for that plug. But she's right. At Landmark School, we have zero tolerance for anything related to bullying and harassment. We have policies and procedures that are very well delineated in our parent and student handbook, and we dive into stuff pretty swiftly and quickly to resolve it, both for the individual that's feeling bullied and to support and assist all parties involved to have a greater understanding of our systems and our expectations. And then consequence. I'm the Dean of Students, and so actions have consequence, both positive and negative. If you engage in patterns of behavior that bring you into a moment of time where we need to sit in a more formal way to discuss and determine whether or not your actions violate our systems and policies, we do that as well. I think globally our effort is to make sure we're supporting all students on campus, working with those that are struggling, both on either side of that issue, but we do it swiftly and with purpose.
Great. Thank you, guys. Students, if you feel like you have anything you want to say about the community, yeah, go ahead, Mia.
So I want to piggyback on what Mr. Gianatelli said. I had a little incident a couple weeks ago, and it happened on Sunday, like 10:30 at night, and he just got straight to it, just solved the problem just like that at 10:30 at night. That just shows how Landmark has zero tolerance for bullying or just not kind behavior. So I think they take it very seriously here, which is really important for a school. So just thought I'd put that out there. So
thanks, Mia. This is a good question about writing skills. Eric, if you're comfortable, you can start with this. How do you feel like your writing skills have changed in the year you've been here, or what do you think about that?
I think my writing skills have improved immensely. I came from public school, and kind of the notion there was, oh, go write a paper. But at Landmark, they don't say go write a paper. They say, okay, we're going to work on the evidence that goes into your paper. And they're not just like, oh, go find evidence. They're like, this is what makes evidence good. This is how you can improve your evidence. And slowly you kind of see the steps on how you build a paper. And at the end of it all, it's this broken down thing where you learn how to do every little bit of it. And then you also learn how to glue it all together and make this like piece that at the end of it, you're not just like, oh, I just wrote this, I submitted it. You're like, wow, I worked on this. I know why every word is in the position that it is. And I'm proud of myself at the end.
That was beautiful, Eric. Very nice. I think that pretty much covers kind of really breaking down the writing process. I missed a question earlier on, and I'm not sure if this was targeted to the students, but I'd love for them to weigh in. This is about what college programs you're looking at. Mia, as a senior, what are you pursuing?
So I want to pursue a biology major, which is a very hard major, lots of studying, lots of reading and writing. So I'm applying to schools that have a strong learning center. They have tutoring for reading and writing. And my guidance counselor at Landmark has been helping me find these schools, and I just finished all of my college applications like a couple days ago. So I'll be hearing from them in a couple months, which is exciting but nerve-wracking at the same time. But Landmark really helps you find what you need in a college, especially because when you have a learning difference, you need to find something that works best for you. So I'm going to be going to a school that hopefully has supports that will help me with my writing and reading skills. So.
Awesome. And Eric, you're a junior, but you're starting the process, right?
Yeah, we're slowly kind of like, right now I'm kind of at that point where you're slowly starting to meet with like your guidance counselors. You're going into one or two virtual the virtual this year, but going 1 or 2 college meetings that like you're seeing, oh, what are they going to go? What's the pitch? Like, how does it look when they try to get you to come to their college? Like, kind of get the feel of the whole process. And then over time, you get like moved in to the, well, I'm not in the process, but I'm guessing you move into the process of like choosing what school you go to. And from what I can tell, they're a lot more helpful than just like, oh, do you have a plan for your future? Yeah. Okay, good. Have fun. They're like, oh, why is this your plan? How do you do it? Do you really think this is the best choice for you? Have you looked over here yet? You know?
Great, guys. Okay, so I want to make sure that I get these students off the call by 10 so they can get to their next class, but I'd love any other burning questions for the students, particularly if there's students on the call, I'm sure. Oh, Nathaniel Smith is on. All right, I'll let Nathaniel say hello.
Yeah, hi guys. I was actually just finishing up a pre-calc test, but I'm Nathaniel. I've been at Landmark since freshman year. I boarded all 3 years before this. I now commute. I live in Southborough, Mass. I'm a senior, and you know, I used to play 3 sports: basketball, soccer, and track. I've had a very good experience at Landmark, and I think looking forward to the future, they have done and will continue to do a very good job preparing me.
Thanks for joining us, Nathaniel. So how long does it take you to get to school?
For me, it takes, I'd say, 50 minutes with no traffic, and anywhere to like an hour and 20, I think, has been the longest.
So why do you do it? Why not just
well, I think that me having dyslexia, virtual learning is just not the same as in person. But also, I like interacting with my teachers and building that connection. And I think that Landmark, I do 1 or 2 days a week virtual online, and I would say it is good. It's obviously you can't compare it to in person, but for the tools that Landmark has, I think they're doing a very good job.
Nathaniel, Mia shared kind of what she's thinking for next year as a senior. Do you want to kind of talk about that?
Yeah. So I actually want to go into education. My mom was a teacher. I grew up at another boarding school. So I'm looking at a couple colleges, Boston University, Marist, American, and a couple others. But I would say the help that I've gotten from the guidance department, specifically on my college essay, and then just working through, setting dates and meeting deadlines. And then I felt very prepared through that, and that I haven't really been alone. And I know some kids at other public schools or even other private schools feel kind of very stressed out, more than I would say I am during this process.
Gotcha. Okay, there's a couple other great questions that I'm going to do rapid fire here. So to summarize Rebecca's question, what do you guys see as the biggest change in yourself after being at Landmark? So she's thinking about looking at your strengths and how you're compensating for your challenges, things like that. What would you say is your biggest change that you've seen in yourself?
I would say two things. One, executive functioning skills. As being a boarding student, they really heavily encourage you to get your work done on time. Don't have a messy, stinky, smelly room. Do your laundry, all that kind of stuff. And you learn the system, and you get up and you learn how to do things on time, meet deadlines. And the second thing I would also say is confidence. You're not allowed, it's not that you're not allowed to, but you're not going to be able to sit in the back of the classroom with your hood on and not say a word and just slip through the cracks. You're going to be forced to raise your hand and answer questions. And once you start answering more questions and you start to actually raise your hand in school, and you start to try to contribute to conversations, and then over time it builds into this kind of confidence that you have when you go into school, that it's not oh, my day's going to suck, I'm going to sit in the back of the class and do nothing. You're oh, I'm going to learn something today, kind of thing.
That's great. Thanks, Eric. Mir and Nathaniel, thoughts on where you've grown?
I think I've grown lots in confidence, because I used to, what Eric said, I went to public school before Carroll and Landmark, and I would sit in the back of the classroom. I would not at all engage in the class. And at Landmark, I have become very confident in myself with my academics. And I think that I've improved with myself advocating as well, because you need to advocate a lot when you're older, because usually when you're, in middle school, they just give you the work. They will come to you and say, hey, you're having trouble, let me help you. But now you have to advocate for yourself and notice, I'm having trouble, I need to tell my teacher, because that's an important part of growing up. So I feel like self-advocating and confidence is the things that I have learned at Landmark and have made me a much better student. So, yeah.
Thanks, Mia. Nathaniel?
Yeah, I would just also like to add, I also came from Carroll, but one thing that I feel like I've really changed the most is, we touched on it earlier, but writing. I came into Landmark not really knowing how to write even 3-paragraph paper or anything, and now I'm currently writing 10-page papers, preparing for college. And I think just the way they use their tools throughout freshman, sophomore, junior year to give you those skills and really work on them so you feel prepared for college, I think that has really helped me. And then also on a residential, the boarding, I would say the level system has really helped me grow and learn a lot of key skills.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Eric, this question I'll direct to you, and then we'll try to wrap up and get you guys off to class. But this was about leaving public school and trying to stay connected with your peers. Up in Vermont, Eric, are you still able to see your friends from freshman year?
Now that I'm remote, it's a lot easier. They live 3 minutes away down the street. But during the year, you have breaks, and you have summer breaks, and a lot of kids do go home during the weekend. I'd say an overwhelming majority of kids don't stay at school for longer than a month at a time. So they do go home and they go on the weekend. And on those weekends, you generally call your friends and you're like, hey, you want to go hang out, watch a movie, sleep over, whatever. And you meet up. And it is a little bit more you become a little bit more distant to them, but you're still friends with them. But when you come to Landmark, it's really quick that you make friends and you become super close to people that are in the Landmark community. And I'd say even now when I'm living in Vermont, I'm interacting, even though it's more like virtual and like over the phone, I'm interacting more with the friends I made at Landmark than the friends I kind of made the years before, because I just made a lot of good quality friends here at Landmark. And I think a lot of people did that. And the way I describe making friends at a boarding school or Landmark in general is it's like a summer camp that you went to when you were younger. That was like an overnight, except it's longer than just 2 weeks. It's a whole school year, and there's academics involved. But
I love it. That's great. Okay, so I want to excuse the students. You guys, as always, this is the highlight for me. It's so nice to hear from you.
Katie, can I jump in here quickly?
Please.
I just wanted to really give a shout out to Nathaniel, Mia, and Eric for being here. Mia and Eric, we really miss seeing you guys. We really do. And Nathaniel, I know you're not here every day, but you've got such a big personality. It feels like you are, actually. But in a sense, I think as Bob mentioned earlier, we're in our 9th week, and I'd be lying if I said we weren't a little bit tired. But at the same time, like hearing you guys talk about your experiences, I think what the program has done for you makes me think about what you've done for our program in a sense by being here. I just want to say it's kind of energizing. So thanks, you guys. I appreciate you being here and sharing this. It's important stuff.
And Eric, you're losing your accent. The longer you're here in the States, you're losing your accent. When we started doing these in the beginning of the year, your accent was much stronger.
Yeah, I know. Speaking a little bit less German at the moment. So, yeah. All right. Have a good day.
End of third period. Thank you guys so much. And yes, Jennifer, to answer your question, we do these panels monthly. So if you're ever, and the students just volunteer, so it's usually a different group each time. So you're welcome to log in for a future visit. Yeah, did you want to say something, Nathaniel?
Yeah, I would just like to add, I remember when I was a part of this, it was in person, but I did a info session at Landmark to learn more about it. And I remember thinking like, okay, this all sounds good. We got a bunch of students that are saying great things about the school. But any school can really do that. But I feel like that, I would be lying if I said, I am just saying this up here because I don't really care about the school. I do. This school has really helped me and changed me. And I actually have Mr. G in a class. And I think even building a connection with, a dean of students, most students don't have that at a school. I think Landmark you really form a connection with your teachers. And through that comes an education that most schools don't provide. So I was just like to say that. And I'm going to put my email in the chat. If anyone would like to contact me, I can give you more information about Landmark.
You're the best. Thank you. All right. So I'll turn it back over to Mel to wrap up. Thank you guys so much for both the panelists and the families for just giving your Thursday morning to us. I hope you felt like this was valuable, and we look forward to connecting with you more as you continue to explore Landmark.
Thanks, Katie, and thanks for everybody for joining in. Thanks for our administrators and yeah, especially the students. They make me tear up to this. After 26 years of doing this, when I listen to them, it blows me away. And they're very, very genuine and sincere with their experiences and, how they really feel like Landmark has impacted them, which is incredible. And it's why so many faculty at Landmark have stayed for as long as they have, because, to get to hear from the kids and know that, how their lives are being changed during their years at Landmark is pretty incredible. So, it's great that they're definitely, like Katie said, the highlight of the visits that we do for sure. And like Bill had mentioned earlier, with his number of years and his son attending, I have a son who's over at our elementary middle school right now. I have a daughter who did 4 summers at Landmark. Both my kids are dyslexic. And so there's, that personal connection for me as well. And it's been pretty incredible and life-changing for my kids as well to have the experience and be a part of Landmark. So thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to reach out to the admission office with any questions at all about the admission process, the application, the materials that you need to submit. We are, answering emails, phones, and we're here, and it is a lengthy process, but we always want to ensure that when we accept a student to Landmark that we are really setting them up to have a wonderful experience and for it to be the right fit and for them to make effective progress. So we're thoughtful with the process, and we will help you through it step by step. So thank you.
Thank you guys so much. So the way you're waiting, I think you can scroll to the bottom toolbar and you'll see that red hang up button. And thank you again.